It's all about you. It's all about you, baby.
How I love doing this podcast with Andrew Wright, despite the sound quality and the recording going out of sync towards the end. Normally, I would have been sat enjoying a coffee with Andrew, but under COVID times, that just wasn't possible. I'd rather you had the interview than not, just because of the joy of it, so do your best as the timing goes. Andrew Wright is a double Olivier nominee, double WhatsOnStage and Carl Allen award-winning choreographer and an acclaimed director. And right from the start, he's reminding us that you never know who you might be inspiring and how important it is to give a hand to others. Andrew reminded me how important it is to find a career pathway that brings you joy and gives you life. It was such a pleasure to chat to him. This podcast is sponsored and supported by 365 days of breastcancer.com. And welcome Andrew Wright to It's All About You, the podcast. Thanks very much for joining us.
You are welcome. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Andrew, we're going to get stuck straight in this morning, and I want to just ask if you can tell us a bit more about your background and what took you to dance and musical theatre in the first place.
Well, most definitely a trip to the theatre when I was a kid. My mum and dad always took my brother and I up to London most half terms to see a show because they love theatre. My brother sat there completely miserable, didn't enjoy theatre at all. And I sat there completely and utterly riveted. And I remember the show. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a show called Underneath the Arches, which was at the Prince of Wales. And we sat on the front row. And I remember being absolutely transfixed by the world, you know, in front of me, these amazing dancers, these funny clown-like people.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, this is, you know, a world that I really connected with it straight away. Even it was about 5 or 6. And, you know, I remember thinking, that's what I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. I
found that incredible that you were so riveted and your brother was so bored. Isn't that fascinating?
I know. Poor Adrian.
I mean, I had a similar experience. I was taken at 4 years old to watch Mikado and Pirates of Penzance with my granddad.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I didn't go into opera, I'm glad to say, with my bad voice. But it was a remarkable experience. I feel just the same as you.
Yeah. Well, I say to when I work with companies now, I always say to them that we must remember that what we do can provide those moments. It can provide sort of a eureka moment for a child in the audience or indeed an adult.
Yeah.
And, you know, we must never forget the power of what we do, as in somebody could be going through a terrible time in their life, you know, and we can give them 2.5 hours of absolute escapism and happiness. And I think that is a brilliant thing to be able to do. And I really, really, I'm very impassioned about that. And I don't like it when I see a company not giving their all, because I think actually we have the potential to change someone's life that one night or one afternoon. And we must never forget that.
No, it's such a privilege, isn't it?
A real privilege. It completely is. Yes. Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. You just have no idea how you're impacting people. I think just because you're not seeing that impact yourself doesn't mean it isn't happening.
That's right. And I think when you're in a long running show, you know, and I've been on that side, and I worked as a dancer for a long time, you do forget that. And I think it's good to be reminded, just sort of a gentle reminder. But from that moment, I remember literally going home and I built a theatre in the garden. I mean, mum and dad had this old kind of porch thing outside the house, which I thought, okay, that's a proscenium arch, perfect. And every summer for about 5 years, I put on a play. I kind of got all my friends. My mum every year would say, Andrew, you're not doing it. And I was slightly turned a blind eye and ear. And, you know, I'd write a little piece and we put it on for charity for all the neighbours to come and watch. And we used to raise a fair bit of money, actually. And hilariously, the last one I did when I was about 12, we actually took it to a few different venues in Somerset. We literally were like on a village hall tour.
A little tour.
Yeah. And my teacher at primary school, a lady called Karen Wood, had a daughter that was very unwell, so we raised a lot of money for her because she was another person that really encouraged my sort of love for theatre. And so I think even from a very, very young age, people say, when did you start choreographing? And I would say from about 5 or 6, because I think I was doing it in a very naive form.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? So there was nothing else ever calling you.
No.
You know, some people can kind of mix the two, but
no.
I spoke to Gary Avison of the Royal Ballet,
Yes.
and he was called to disco dancing, actually.
Yeah, why not?
But that's amazing. So you've been musical theatre right the way through.
That's right. And, you know, I'm from a little town in Somerset. And, you know, at that time, you know, boys to go into a dance class, it, you know, did not really happen. Or if it did, it came with a lot of stigma. And I know I've always been pretty thick-skinned, but I had no real access to what I would call a professional training. So everything I did came from just a sort of gut instinct idea. And then when I eventually went to train professionally, I was in quite a shock because I realized suddenly that my technique was absolutely appalling. All I knew how to do was perform, I suppose. And I had that love. I mean, when I auditioned for Doreen Bird, we were told we had to wear ballet tights, and you know, my mum gave me a pair of her old tights to wear. I mean, the other
pair of American tan.
Yeah, the other boys in the audition must have thought, "What on earth? Who is that boy?"
Yeah.
But I think all the people, every time I went to audition for like a college or somewhere, I think they just saw potential, and that is absolutely what I look for when I'm casting a show. I don't look for a finished article, finished item. I look for that kind of gut potential,
something you can work with. And also attitude, right, which you must have been buzzing with.
Well, I just I've always loved it, and I still love it. So I think I'm definitely an optimistic, glass half full person, and I think I just bring with me bucket loads of optimism, and perhaps not bucket loads of technique, but I somehow get around that with just sort of sheer verve and attack, I suppose.
Yeah. On to when you're entrenched in a show. I know for a fact, being an ex-professional dancer myself, it isn't all plain sailing all the time. So how do you look after yourself and dig in when the going gets tough? And do you follow a system? Have you got a system or a process you work through for each show?
Do you mean as a creative, as a choreographer?
Yes.
Well, I kind of approach most shows in the same way. You know, break the show down, research. And, you know, a lot of the success of a show is in its casting, which I learned really later in life. And I spend a lot more time casting a show now because, you know, you can have great ideas, but without the right cast to implement them, they don't perhaps succeed. I just devour myself in the job. I think I'm probably not a great person to ask about looking after yourself because I feel like I'm on a treadmill, but I love that. I love being on a treadmill, and I do like to kind of keep forward thinking.
But isn't that part of the deal, really, is learning how to kind of honour yourself in a way? And if that suits you, doing, going flat out all the time. Because there are spaces in between shows sometimes where you've got downtime, you can spend time with your lovely dog Lola.
That's right.
All of those kind of things. Right. So that's the way, isn't it?
It is. And actually, you know, obviously with this time at the moment that we're all going through, it's kind of enforced time off, isn't it?
Recording in COVID time.
And I would not. You know, I have never spent 8 weeks not working on a project. You know, I might have a few weeks off, knowing that I start rehearsals. So most of that, you know, if I have a couple of weeks away, I would be thinking still about the next project. Whereas
and researching it.
At the moment, all I'm thinking is I'm going to go out into my garden, and but actually, it has been incredibly therapeutic. I'm lucky enough to have a garden, to have a dog. You know, I just have removed my theatre head for a while and put on sort of Andrew the gardener head.
And I expect you're doing that as well as you do your choreography.
Yes, I mean, look, it's always in the back of my mind, always. But I've had to apply for jobs, normal jobs, because at the moment, you know, theatre is, as we know, going through a tough time. So what I have realised is that I'm terrible on paper. Because when you have to write your qualifications down, I'm like, oh dear. This is not good.
But Well, but you've got plenty of things you can show people.
Yes, but isn't it? But when I'm applying for a normal job, then I don't look great. That's what I realized. Because I left school at 17. I left school a year early. I didn't do my A levels because I did. I got Oliver when I was 16, 17 in London, and my mum and dad let me do it. And then I came back to school for the winter term, and I just thought, I felt like I was treading water, and I knew that I just wanted to get and train. And mum and dad very generously said, well, go and audition for a college. If you get in, then we'll discuss it. And if you don't, then you stay at school. And I got a place, and I actually left school in the Easter term of my lower sixth. So when I was 17. And I remember mum saying, you're not sitting around the house for 6 months. You're going to go out and work. So I worked in a hotel and a supermarket for 6 months to earn money. And actually, it was a really happy 6 months. I think I find myself in that situation. I'm going to find a positive in it, like I do with most situations.
Well, and I think there's plenty to learn, isn't there, when you're doing a job that's not your usual domain? Well, there's lots to learn.
Lots to learn. And, all through life, you learn how to deal with people. And actually working in a supermarket and a hotel was great training for working now with actors who, perhaps are, demanding in places, or, half of being a director, I think, is being a politician. And you just, it's a lot of trying to understand the balance of a company and giving everybody what they need. I learned that through working in the supermarket, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, but I can understand that. Sometimes, I was talking about this to a colleague recently, that when you're taken off in a different direction, you kind of put your tools down, as it were, and that allows things to consolidate and gives you an open mind to other things, wherever you are.
I totally agree. I mean, I think I've always been a great believer in fate. And I think if something is meant to go your way, for whatever reason, it will. And if it won't, then, you just have to, of course, there's been moments when I've been disappointed I haven't got a job and frustrated. But I always try to believe there is a reason for that.
I agree. And oftentimes when you look back at something that you don't get, you've got to have the hindsight, of course. You have to travel along in time a bit, but you can look back and think, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that didn't happen.
Yes, because of the consequences of the things that happened after. That's absolutely right.
Yeah, or something better came along and you'd have never been able to have fulfilled it. Or there's all manner of reasons.
That's right. Yes, yeah.
So you must have incredible discipline. I mean, as an ex-dancer myself, and I know what that entails. Are you able to lean on that to get you through any challenges that you encounter?
100%. I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think whatever a dancer goes on to do, I don't think you ever forget your training. You don't ever forget.
No, you don't.
Turning up, ready for the bar, the discipline of doing a ballet class. All those things, I think, help in life. So I think, I've always been incredibly disciplined on myself. I demand a lot of myself. And I always say to a company on the first day of rehearsals that I will demand a lot of you. Like, I expect you to be here on time. I expect the work to be 100% and full of passion, because I expect that of myself. And I don't like it when that wavers. So yes, very disciplined, very disciplined.
Well, I think you can see that in your shows. You can definitely see that the cast is there, full of energy.
Yeah.
Every single performance.
Well, that's good. I always think if a company likes the show and likes the work, the show will be better.
Yeah. Well, they're happier, aren't they?
And you can. I'm sure you've seen shows when you think there's something not quite right, and I think it's always, they may be grinning from ear to ear, but there's sort of the love behind the eyes has slightly waned.
Yeah, you do. Can you feel that too when you see it? I find that's really sad.
I can definitely see it,
but you do come across
it. I think also I'm drawn to happy shows. I like theatre that uplifts. I think we've got enough sort of doom and gloom in the world, and I think theatre should do lots of things. But I think actually one thing it should definitely do is deliver joy, and I think joy is quite underrated as
Yeah, me too. I love that.
Yeah, I think a lot of shows try to, and I of course theatre should be political and it should delve deep.
Challenging,
of course, but then it should also deliver happiness and joy, which sounds very basic, but actually for many people that's what they're craving.
Yeah, I would agree, and certainly in these times, I mean, the tragedy of it is that the theatre stopped, and it's something that we could all lean on and take solace in, really.
Yes, and I think that when it does eventually open up again, which it most definitely will, there will be a longing for this sort of, you know, release of sheer, like an endorphin hit of happiness. People will crave that after being locked in for months on end.
Yeah, I wonder that you know what I'm going to say now, don't you? I wonder that you should bring half Sixpence
Tell
back.
Cameron that.
I would happily tell him, because well, I think I've told you this before, that I went to see the show. My daughter wanted to go and see it before it closed. She wanted to see Charlie Stemp, of course. I'd never heard of him, and so I went. I was expecting to have a snooze fest. I'm sorry to say that to you. And my gosh, I was gripped. I was so riveted. I was almost throwing myself off the balcony and the circle just to say thank you. And I went to see that show 4 times in 2 weeks before it closed. It was incredible.
I think,
absolutely incredible.
Charlie is a lot to he is a lot of the reason that show was a success, because Charlie is everything we've just talked about. Charlie is that person. Charlie is optimistic. He walks into a room and he emits sunshine. And I think whatever I asked Charlie to do, A, he would just give it a go, and B, he would add his sort of Charlie special sparkle to it.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one day we were setting Money to Burn, and I said, I want to get you up onto the bar, Charlie. You know, shall we do a lift or should we get a chair? And he went, oh no, I'll just jump. And I said, Charlie, the bar's about sort of 5 foot high, and he has springs in his legs, and he defies gravity, Charlie. So I think
he's a joy to watch, and he drags that out of you, doesn't he?
And he was, you know, creating that show on Charlie was something thrilling. I mean, I taught Charlie at Lanes. I knew he was good, you know, but I perhaps wasn't aware of quite how special he was. And it was a very, very happy time. And I think your opinion of the show was actually the majority. A lot of people came thinking, oh gosh, this might be a bit dull, and left kind of going, wow, I did not expect that.
I couldn't tell enough people to go and see it. I took people. I sent people.
Thank you for
all
that.
In the space of about 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know how many I
you should ask commission
there with this urgency that you've got to go and see it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it ran for 9 months, which is a respectable run. I for some reason, it didn't quite take off as much as we had. You know, obviously, we all would like the show still to be on. But it's funny, isn't it? What shows connect with an audience? It's a lot about timing. I like perhaps if we had opened post, you know, this virus, that might have been a better time for it. I think it's a lot about theatre choice. I think a lot of things add up to whether a show succeeds or fails. But
well, and also, you know, pretty much what I was saying as well. I had a dull vision of it. And it was my daughter that made me go. And the minute when I was taking other people or sending them, they all looked at me like, really?
Interesting,
and all
isn't it?
of them came out absolutely raving about it. Yeah, I think it's just
the title
it's so old.
Doesn't perhaps give it the justice it should have. And I think people hear that title and go, oh gosh, you know, it's going to be a bit of an old-fashioned evening. But actually, no, it was incredibly. And, you know, my favourite thing about any show is standing at the back of the auditorium, watching an audience come in, perhaps who still have hang-ups from the day, you know, long day at work. And then watching the same people leave the auditorium. And those, you know, seeing people actually physically dance out the auditorium. Seeing people...
I know that you've helped create
seeing families,
that,
like I used to see like mums lift their kids up, and there's like, you know, a real sense of happiness leaving. They think, isn't that a thrilling thing to do? It's wonderful. And I love just sneaking into the back. I hate, anyone who knows me knows that I never sit to watch my own shows, partly because if I sat next to somebody, they would hate me because I'm wriggling around and doing the movements with them. But also, I love just to observe quietly at the back. I often stand just right at the back and sneak in for the odd nights here and there.
I think the answer to how do you protect your mental health for you is that you don't really make a massive effort to do so, because you've got joy around you.
Look, I think I'm very lucky in the fact that what I do as a job brings happiness. So I'm sure it must be very different if you get up each morning and think, I don't want to go to work. but I do spring out of bed thinking I can't wait. I mean, essentially, I still feel like I'm that 5-year-old boy, because all I do is sort of play in the studio and create a show. I do some days think I should have a proper grown-up job and earn a proper living. But so I suppose if your job brings you happiness, then it is easier to deal with your sort of mental health, because you tend to be happy. Not saying that is 100% of the time. And I know that if I'm not in a great place, I will get in the car, drive to Somerset, time permitting, go for a long walk. I love nature, so just go and sort of rediscover nature again. And the great outside.
Well, I think walking gives you so much.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
I tend to find that going out with the dogs and letting the day just ebb away, and if I've got anything major on my mind, I can always guarantee it's pretty much solved by the time 100%. I get back.
And I love taking the dog for a walk, because every person you meet, you have a chat with. Every dog walker, and I love the fact that even if I'm going through a very stressful rehearsal period, none of these dog walkers know that. None of them care. They just greet you and speak to you on a very lovely human level. No one's still saying to you, "Oh gosh, how's rehearsals going?" They're sort of like, in fact, we all talk to each other's dogs, don't we? I know the dogs' names before I know the owners' names.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you have a whole lot of dog friends, don't you?
I love, because no one cares the fact that I choreograph shows or direct shows. They just greet you on a lovely level. Exactly. So even if work is stressful, and some shows are more stressful than others. I'm not saying that every show is plain sailing. But that's a great leveler.
Well, and I think your makeup and how you're brought up, I think from your perspective, you've had a lot of joy from musical theatre straight away. I know I had tough times growing up and leaned on musical theatre, actually, as many people do. And I think it kind of shapes you. So for myself, I know I have to work. Everybody that knows me says I'm the most optimistic person they know. But I work hard for that. I have to keep my head in the right space. And so I think it's always looking around you and feeling that you've got a right to deserve happiness and joy in your life, and looking for that all the time. I think when you've been given a lot of nonsense and bad things through your life, it can be kind of all the only thing you see.
I think that it makes me even more sure that what I say to a company is right. The fact that someone you've just said perhaps not had the happiest of upbringings, but has found joy in what we do, that even more cements my feeling that it is very, very important what we do. It's almost like a social service. You can, as you are living proof, your life can benefit from musical theatre. And what really rattles me is when I see musical theatre slightly sidelined, or when I hear people talk down about it. And I think, actually, no, don't talk. It's a really powerful genre.
Yeah, I agree. Harping on back to Half a Sixpence in particular, I can remember coming out, and that show kept me warm for a good 3 or 4 months, and into the future. I'm still talking about it.
That is thrilling, and that is what I think when you create a show, that's what you hope every show will do to somebody. And even if it does it to just one person, then I think that's job worthwhile done. Yeah.
I agree. I kind of hope these coronavirus times we've had a lot of time to reflect and to understand ourselves better, and a whole range of things. And we are changed for good. And I really hope that carries in, that people look to help and support each other, and look to support themselves and do things that
I
are
agree.
good for
and I
them.
think this has made us all have to rethink, hasn't it, what we do and how we act. And I think as a theatre community, it has brought lots of people have been very positive. They've been very proactive online, doing wonderful, great things, and keeping people's spirits up in this tough time, because none of us are denying it's a very challenging time for everybody. But I like the fact that theatre people kind of go, okay, let's roll our sleeves up and let's make a positive out of this. And I think that is, again, another reason to love what we do.
Yeah, I quite agree. And it brings out, we see both the worst and best of humanity, don't we? We've got a generosity of spirit, and actually I'm choosing to ignore
I think
the
you're
other
right.
side,
Yes, I think you have to. Again, it's focusing on the positive, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean people that are mean-spirited rather than, you know, the horrible side of what we've seen in the hospitals is just phenomenal, actually. So I'm full of support and praise for that. But there are some people that have reacted quite meanly, I will say, and I think I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that in my life.
They can become, they drain you, like, because you can't. It's hard to understand their thought process. And I think, you know, by trying to understand it does drain you. And I've learned, you know, I say I've learned, I'm probably learning. I don't think I've ever learned fully to try and not surround myself with people like that, because there will always be people to try and slightly get in your way, or, you know, and rather than try and challenge it or rise to it, I don't surround myself with those people.
Engage with it.
It's interesting because in April, I did these Q&As on my Instagram of all the people that have been my associates over the years, and actually chatting to each of them made me realize they are all incredibly similar. In fact, they are all very positive, beautiful, brilliantly talented people, but they all have that similar work ethic, that similar craving of what to deliver what we do, and to focus again on the positive. I know I keep coming back to that, but they all have the same thing, and I thought that's interesting, isn't it? I'm obviously drawn to that sort of person.
Well, I expect they're all quite giving in their natures as well.
They're very generous, and I think, look, someone asked me the other day if if there was somebody who auditioned for you and was spectacularly good, but you knew they were difficult or a tricky person to have in a company, would you employ them? And personally, I said I wouldn't. Now, it's not always my choice, because often a producer will want to say, or the director, if I'm just choreographing. But I think that no amount of talent is worth having somebody in the show who won't be as generous as the others and could potentially infiltrate that company. So when someone auditions for me, and if I don't know them, but I think they're very good, I will always, look at who they've worked for and phone that person and say, my first question always is, are they nice? Because I want to work with nice people.
Yeah, and you need to keep the spirits of the company up, when it's a long run. You need people that are, and I'm a massive giver. I think it's the biggest thing. In fact, my mental health is protected by the fact if I find myself going down, the very first thing I'll do is look around me and go and give to somebody else, because you can't help but feel better when you've done that. And I think if you've got a giving, generous soul, it takes you quite a way in life.
Well done for doing that. I wish more people did.
Yeah, well, I think lots of people do it naturally without putting a name to it. Like you've just spoken about yourself and your colleagues. That's exactly what you're doing, supporting each other and giving out. And I like to be a go giver.
Wonderful.
Rather than a go getter.
That should be your new hashtag.
Get myself as.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, what's next for Andrew Wright?
That's a good question. What?
Does anybody know?
You tell me. You tell me.
Nobody knows.
I think 2020. Well, 2021 will hopefully be a wonderful version of what 2020 could have been, and I think probably it looks like at the moment that every job I had this year will be done next year, which is wonderful. So, I have got sort of 8 months, or how many months left of this year? 7 months left to plan for 2021, and in the meantime, I'm moving house. I'm moving to Somerset, so I am literally Andrew Wright, builder / labourer / bonfire keeper. That is my role in life at the moment. And then when my role becomes choreographer and director again, then that's what it will do. It looks like the first show I will be doing in the 2021, which I'm really excited about. It hasn't been announced, but I won't give you the title, but I will give you a taster. Is a it's a kind of scoop, because no one knows this at all. But I'm doing a very big dance show in quite a small space with a very famous leading man. There we go. I know, and it's a show that hasn't been done for a very long time. It's a show that I've always loved, and I took the idea to this theatre, and we were meant to be doing it in October this year. Obviously, because of the situation, that hasn't happened, but we are now going into rehearsals in January. and I'm really excited about it. It's a show that I think will, and I think with the timing of, hopefully coming out of what we've all gone through, it will be a great healer for people. And so that will be probably my first show after being a builder for 7 months. I hope I remember what to do.
Well, I look forward to seeing that.
I hope so.
I'm sure you will. So I kind of like to look at this time for you as being in a pressure cooker
lovely.
of creativity,
I like that. Okay,
Andrew.
Good.
Because you're brimming with it. You have to be if you started at age 5. And I think this downtime and the way you've approached your life and the fact you're being a great builder and a great gardener and everything like that, I think it kind of, it gives you other qualities mentally, and I can only think that'll add to your brilliant.
I mean, I don't claim to be a skilled gardener or skilled labourer, but I do have passion with it. When I'm digging the ditch, I'm digging it full out. There's no half measures. Yeah,
it goes a long way. When the wall of your house is falling down,
but I built it with rain coming through the ceiling. It may be terrible, but it's got passion in it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly that.
I'll just say it's a very big water feature, and nobody will question it. Yeah.
So just to finish off, I'm kind of wanting to know what the favourite thing about your fantastic career
I mean, that's a tough one, isn't it? There have been many great things, and I think I tend not to try and just focus on the really huge things. Obviously, having a show in London was always my dream, and when Singin was at the Palace, I on a daily basis couldn't believe it was there. I'd wake up and think, no, it's a dream, and I get on the tube and just have to go and look at the theatre and go, no, it is there. It is actually there. Yeah, but wonderful. Then I also tend to think, okay, it's not all about the big picture. It's also about achieving something quite small. So I try to find, again, balance and success in not only reaching for the big goals in life, but also getting through a day happy. Getting through the day healthy is also a thing to be proud and feel good about. Obviously, having an Olivier nomination was a wonderful thing. I mean, I found that the whole process very exhausting. And I remember when I was nominated for Singin' in the Rain and my award, the nomination had been announced and I hadn't won, this wave of absolute fatigue just hit me, and I could have curled up and gone to sleep. I think for 6 weeks, I'd been on this sort of treadmill of everyone sort of saying lovely things, and then it was all kind of over and it just vanished.
Yeah.
So I suppose by saying that, I mean, I don't just hold the big picture as the important things. Having, great friends, great family is also equally as important as being successful in your career.
Yeah, I agree. And I think certainly in the times that we're placed at the moment, great friends and great family is what keeps
but
you
I
warm,
also do think, it is good to set goals. And whether or not you achieve them, everyone's allowed to move their goal. But I think it's good to get up in the morning, even if your goal is, okay, I'm going to finish cleaning the ditch today, or I want to be on the West End by the time I'm 25. Have those goals, have those dreams. I remember when I was in college, and I think every other day a teacher would say to us the equation of how many actors are out of work. They'd always say, only, it's always horribly low. They say 10% of actors are in work. And I always used to think, okay, I'm going to be one of that 10%. Don't focus on the fact there are 90% out of work. Focus on the fact you could be one of the 10%. That the possibility is there. And I use that through life. And I think everything has a negative and a positive. Again, it goes back to focusing on the positive. That's going to be my hashtag. Yeah.
Yes, you go for that, because I think actually you get what you focus on, don't you?
Even if you don't fully get it, I think you feel better for trying to achieve it. And
you do. Or you get a different version of it, Andrew. I just think if you're looking down all the time, that's where you're going to gravitate towards. And I've experienced that myself. When you're looking up, you might not get what you think you were going for, but there will always be something great.
So right. And I do think that when I was, in my teens and going through a college, social media, all those things did not exist. We didn't crave to be perfect. now that I find it really sad when I talk to students and they compare themselves to these impossibly perfect people. And I say to them, those people are not real. They're manufactured. And I see that these young people are weighed down by the fact that they don't see their life or their future as perfect. Whereas when I was 16, 17, I had no one to compare to. I just thought, this is my journey. I'm going to give it everything I can. And if I don't succeed on it, then I'll do something else. But I wasn't always thinking, oh gosh, I'm not good enough. I just thought, no, I'm just going to go for it and give it a go.
Well, and I think one of the things I've really loved, in line with what you've just said, during lockdown has been, there's been so many of the Royal Ballet, who I'm a massive follower of, putting things on their feed. So we've got people like Vadim Montegiro doing jumps in his flat, and falling off his jumps and making a joke of it, because that's what happens in real life. And all the Royal Ballet lot, all of them have put their rehearsal and done bad things on there.
Do you want even more exciting news?
Yes.
The leading man in the said show might be from the Royal Ballet.
Yeah.
So I've completely made your day today, haven't I?
Oh, you have, yeah. Oh my God, I am absolutely Royal Ballet soaked.
Yes, me too. I adore it as well. So this.
Oh my goodness.
So okay, you're going to have to come to the press night. I think. Yes. Yeah. Very good.
I am. I am.
Fine. Pester away.
I'm
That's fine.
Pestering you. Yeah. Well, listen, Andrew. I've absolutely loved speaking to you. I could chat to you all day. It's been simply wonderful. And actually, I'm going to let people know that this is take 2 for us, isn't it? Because we did the first recording and we were just mobbed by our
my dog ran out onto the road,
so
I ran out to get her. Came, the reception went. I know it was slightly kamikaze, and that's why this time.
I've got to say, the joy in that for me is been having.
I tell you what you should do. You should do the outtakes.
You
should do the bad version eventually. Yes. No, it's been a joy, and I can hear the passion that you have, and I love that in people. So thank you for what you do. You're doing it. You as well as as many other people are helping people, and that's a wonderful gift.
Yeah, that's very important. I think, to lift people up. Always have your hand down, ready. That's another
hashtag. You got loads today. Come on.
Really. Yeah, I'm going to sit down and make a few up now. You've started me off.
Have a lovely day.
Listen, Andrew, that was amazing.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. If you like this podcast, like it, comment on it, or share it. Thank you.